Back to the soundtrack to my journey. Today's episode is all about resilience, rhythm, and discovering your own pace in a world that rarely slows down. My guest today is Bambi Jackson, a licensed social worker and a therapist whose life is shaped by the highs, the lows of adult ADHD. She opens up about what it truly means to rise while still finding your vibe. Bambi, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's try this right now. I have some real questions for her. So, Bambi, again, thank you so much for being on this platform. And I'm going to let you start by introducing yourself to the audience. Let them know where you're from, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, Jen.
Absolutely.
um, I'm originally from Boston, Roxbury to be exact. 02119 in the house.
That's right.
I've been in Georgia for I think about 13 or 14 years now.
Already?
Yes,
Golly, time
I
is
know, right?
flying
Time
by.
is flying, right? It seems like the years are going by fast. Anyway, that's my ADHD. Because I am also ADHD. But yeah, I'm from Boston. I live in Georgia. I have been a social worker since I graduated high school.
Mm,
Um, I have done everything with the exception of research. I've done case management. I've run youth programs. I've worked with homeless families. I've done everything with the exception of research, which I'm looking to get into within the next year or two. And I have been a therapist for about 10 years now.
okay.
Um, I have been licensed um, I have been associate licensed, which means I have a supervisor for probably about the last, I think, was it 2019? So probably about the last 7 years, 6 or 7 years. And I'm also a traveling social worker, which means that I work in the hospitals and I work with patients and their families with getting them set up with resources and things like that when they discharge from the hospital. So I'm kind of like all over the place with it, but I absolutely love it.
Okay. Okay. Well, wow. Where did you go to college?
So I went to for undergrad. I went to Springfield College.
Okay.
And for grad school, I went to the illustrious Clark Atlanta University,
Okay.
which was probably the best thing I ever did in my entire
Nice.
life.
Nice.
It is an HBCU.
Atlanta.
It's based in Atlanta. Yes, the AUC, which the AUC is made up of Clark Atlanta, Spelman, and Morehouse. But I went to Clark Atlanta for my master's. The best thing I could have ever done. We are the oldest Black social work school, the Whitney Young Social School of Social Work in the country. We've been it's about I think about 100 years. Our school has been in existence, um,
Wow.
and we go. They teach us from what they call the Afrocentric perspective, which is highly concentrated on the intersectionality of culture, race, gender, all the other things that people are usually oppressed because of. But it's really highly focused on, you know, first focused on African Americans and people of African descent, and the things that we go through and things like that, but also like how we can take those same experiences and apply them to everyone culturally, and respecting people's differences and applying that to the things that oppress them in different ways.
Nice. I didn't
Yeah.
even know that about Clark. So kudos
Yeah.
to Clark.
A1, A1, baby.
So I'm going to jump right in if you don't mind. I have about 10 to 12 questions for you. I've been going over and over to try to make sure that I found the right ones that I wanted to ask you. So they're kind
Absolutely.
of mixed up from, some that I showed you, some that I created today. So let's get
Well, I've
to
been following you, so I know these questions get hot and heavy.
it. Thank you. So we'll start with the easy one. The phrase still rising and still vibing. What does that mean to you personally? That's the episode title for this particular episode for you.
It to me it means one of my favorite. This is like one of my, I don't know what you want to call it, favorite things to say or favorite phrases. It's equivalent to always evolving, which is my handle on social media.
Absolutely.
Um, it's just you're not you're it's nonstop. Like
Hmm.
you're always evolving, you're always vibing, you're always rising, and it doesn't matter good, bad, or indifferent, the growth is going to happen,
As it
and
should.
sometimes the
Absolutely.
growth is happening when you don't even see it, or you don't feel it, or you're feeling like you're failing. That's really where the growth is at. So always rising, always vibing. That's me.
There you go. There you go. I love that. So let's get back on the topic of you being a social worker and a therapist. How did you even get involved, or what was the interest that guided you in that direction?
Um, so I don't think a lot of people, a lot of people when they think about social workers, they think about like DCF or like children and families, like you come to take your kids. I have never
Yes.
worked for any of those. I've worked with them as a therapist, but I've never worked directly for any of those agencies. And it cracks me up because even when I'm at the hospital and I walk into a room and I introduce myself as a social worker, sometimes people are looking at me like, well, what do you want? Like, we ain't got no kids here. Like, there's no, like, and I'm like, baby, I don't want your children anyway. You know what I mean? Like, that's not even what I'm here for. So, I don't think a lot of people understand that social workers are also licensed clinicians, they're licensed therapists, and we are trained for holistically, like we're trained to deal with people in a holistic way, meaning we're trained to look at a person, an individual, from all perspectives, economically, socially, psychologically, environmental, family. Like we are trained to interact with the individual with all of those things in mind.
Okay.
It's very difficult to help someone when you're only looking at one piece of their puzzle. And so, growing up, I watched my mom was on drugs when I was a kid, but she got clean really quickly. And my mom actually is also a master levels social worker. Um,
Ah,
and growing up, I saw people address her in a way that just stuck with me as a little girl. Like people would come up to her and be like, "You saved my life," I don't know what I would have done had I not met you and worked with you and things like that. And so when I graduated high school, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to, and I've had my own journey with things. I've been in foster care. I was out of the house early as a teen, like, so I've had a very interesting journey of my own, which I think further made me want to help people and want to um, give of my own experiences, but also to try to help people to be able to move past whatever it is they're stuck on.
understood. Understood. And sometimes that's usually what triggers your interest to go into a field.
Absolutely.
I've met many of people that had either car accidents or something like that, and the treatment that they received in the hospital kind of motivated them to go to medical
Right.
school and become a doctor. So I completely understand. I think it's completely relatable. So
Yeah.
yeah. But thank you for your services.
Thank you.
So you mentioned earlier that you have adult ADHD. So living with adult ADHD, what has been some of the biggest, I guess, ways that it shaped your daily rhythm personally and professionally?
First, it was coming to terms with it, and realizing that it is something that I've had for a while, and I just never realized it. Um, and so when you're talking about ADHD, a lot of the times people think of how it shows up in children, and I work with children as well as adults that have ADHD, and it definitely presents differently.
Oh, it
With
does.
children, absolutely, absolutely. So with children, you'll see hyperactivity, you'll see that they can't pay attention. You may get calls from the teachers or after schools or different places that are like, we can't get him or her to focus, and they're not doing well in school. You may not be able to get them to complete task at home, like brushing their teeth or making their bed, and you have to constantly remind them over and over and over again to do things. And sometimes they can be very impulsive, and that can show up in violent ways sometimes, where they have these intense meltdowns because they're not able to regulate their emotions enough to calm themselves. But for adults, it shows up differently. Like, so you still get some of that, right? But I think as adults, we excuse bad behavior because we're grown. And so for adults, it can show up as you having trouble sticking to a task or completing a task. For adults, it can show up as you having difficulty completing tasks, focusing, emotional regulation issues, where you are impulsive and you're not able to calm yourself when you're really upset. So sometimes you'll just go fly off the handle. And a lot of the times people will think, oh, well, maybe they have a mood disorder, and or they'll attribute it to other things, when in all actuality, those are also characteristics of someone that has ADHD.
Oh, okay. All right. So I will admit that I've realized that I may have some characteristics as I've been kind of listening and paying attention to certain things that you're saying. I'm going to ask for your real personal and professional diagnosis of me. You've known me most of your life. So what are your thoughts about
Well,
me?
first, I can't diagnose you because you're my family. But if I were to say that, I think I would say yes.
For adult ADHD?
Yes. Like, people think like it's like this, you're all over the place type of thing. Like, you're just hyperactive and you're impulsive and you lack attention. But again, it shows up in other ways, like not being able to stick with a particular task for a long period of time, or um, it could be mood swings. And mood swings are not always, these explosive, crazy expressions of emotion. Sometimes they're just cutting people out or cutting them off and just needing your space because you're overstimulated, so yes, to the short answer is yes. I have seen some traits of ADHD in you throughout the years.
I'm not even offended, and I don't even think it's anything that anybody should be offended about. I think for me, it's a little bit more clarity.
Yeah.
It's clarity on the fact that, I was wondering why I'm doing these things after the fact. If I have a meltdown or if I do something that's,
Or
from here to there.
those impulsive, that
Yes.
impulsivity of like, you know what, I'm gonna jump up and go to Tennessee today, or I'm gonna buy a flight to Timbuktu. You know what I mean? Like,
And
those are
that's
all
me. I'd be
traits
like,
of adult
well,
ADHD.
I
It's
seen a
that
ticket on sale
need
and
for
I'm
like
not really in the
peace.
mood to be right here. You want to go?
Yeah, totally. But
But
because we're adults, we're like, oh, it's not that serious,
right,
and those are positive. Well, not necessarily positive ways, but no one's being hurt. No one, you're not
right.
causing any trouble. But those are some examples of how it shows up in adults.
That's interesting. I think this will be very informative for a lot of people that have always kind of wondered, because
Mhm.
I found myself at times kind of making a joke like, oh, I got ADHD. It was
Yeah.
a joke, but not in a bad way. It was
But I
almost like,
still would recommend people to go and talk to a professional and
oh,
be,
yeah,
diagnosed professionally. Like, nowadays, we use all of these terms so freely. Like, everyone's a
exactly.
therapist, everyone's, we use all of these therapeutic terms, and no one really knows what they mean. And so now everyone is like self-diagnosing. So I'm totally like, yeah, that's great. Don't
Yeah.
use this as self-diagnosis. Go see a professional. Okay. And yeah, go be
No, I get it.
evaluated.
I get it. But yeah, I kind of always felt like I was different and
Yeah.
not in a bad way, just, I moved differently and I just couldn't understand why people couldn't think or move the way I did. And I know my family would probably often say to me, Jen, you got to stop getting upset that everybody doesn't respond like you or everybody doesn't move the way you do. And I would be like, well, it doesn't make sense to you either.
Well, like everything out here is like all of our research and things like that are done for people that are like neurotypical. And neurotypical just means people that are supposedly normal. I don't believe in normal, but
Mm,
these are people that don't have like ADHD. They're not on the autism spectrum. They don't have OCD. They're not dyslexic. Like
right.
those are all neurodivergent conditions. And
Okay.
that just means that your brain functions differently than someone who's neurotypical.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're dumb or that because people tend to think when you hear autism, people tend to think that you know there's some type of disability or well not like there's some type of delay or
Right.
intellectual or developmental delay, and that's not always necessarily
No,
the case.
no. They
um
just
you know
they just have a
newer
different way of doing things.
Yes, and newer research is showing that there actually are more people on the autism spectrum that are on the higher functioning side, and all higher functioning side means is that they don't have the delays, developmental delays that sometimes that is most associated with autism. When people
Okay.
think of people that have autism or children that have autism, you think of people that may not be able to speak or that have behavior issues or that are not normal in some kind of way. But there are a lot of people that are on the spectrum that are just like you and I.
Okay. Okay.
It's not their behaviors, it's not their developmental stages that makes them autistic. There's other criteria that causes them to meet that diagnosis.
Okay. So what are some of the common misconceptions about ADHD, especially in women of color?
I would say one of them is that so a lot of the times there's a aspect of mood instability that can come with ADHD for women. And a lot of the times it is seen as they're depressed or they're anxious when really it could be related to them having ADHD because of the brain changes that are happening.
Okay.
So sometimes emotional regulation shows up and how emotional regulation shows up, difficulty with sticking with tasks. There's a lot, your brain is going 1,000 miles a minute. So sometimes people will be like, I can't slow down my thoughts. All of those things could also be symptoms of adult ADHD, especially in women. And then when you include hormone changes and all that stuff, like it's really difficult. So that's one of the reasons why it's very important to follow up with a professional so that they
Right.
can help you decide if this is truly depression or are you dealing with something a little bit more like ADHD. Is this anxiety or do you just have a hyperactive mind? And this is how your hyperactivity is showing up, your impulse control, your lack of emotional regulation.
Okay. Okay. I know that you also mentioned that you support adults navigating undiagnosed autism, anxiety, ADHD, and depression. How do you stay grounded after a heavy session with an emotional, case?
um my music, so when I get overstimulated, I usually don't get overstimulated with other people's problems unless they're very close to me. I have learned how to um, d- um,
Disconnect.
disconnect, disassociate from what my clients bring to me. Because I always look at my clients um, I look at them holistically, but it's not for me to bring their problems home with me. There are some cases where I'm like, oh my God, that's tugging on my heartstrings. So now I need to go do some more research, or I need to go and figure out some other coping skills or tools that I can introduce to this person. But one thing that I stand 10 toes down on is that you can't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. So
Hmm.
I don't work with people from the perspective of, I need you to do this like that. I work with them from the perspective of, if I can inform you and you can take one small thing from this, then I've succeeded.
Right.
Now how you use that and what you do with that is completely up to you. So for me, I'm more affected by people that are close to me in my personal life. So I have to be very selective about who I allow in my personal life, because that can bring me over the edge. That can dysregulate me really
Mm.
badly. So when I am feeling like that, I usually do tune out. I usually do like to listen. A lot of times I don't like to listen to music with words. I'm more into like jazz or classical, or
Okay.
something with a great rhythm or beat that I like. Or if there is a song that I listen to with words, the words have some type of meaning to me, and I'll play that song
Absolutely.
100 times on repeat.
I can understand that for
Yeah,
sure. I know that you also mentioned that for you, you tune into music to, keep yourself, grounded and all. Do you use music for coping skills for your patients?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So a lot of the times clients are already using music.
Okay.
When I ask them, hey, what do you do when you're angry? What does it feel like? What do you use? How do you calm yourself down? A lot of the times, one of the first things they'll say is, I'll listen to music.
Okay.
So they'll either listen to music on the headphone, or they'll blast it on their stereo, but there's always music involved some way. A lot of people that are kids or adults that are on the spectrum, headphones with some type of soothing music is good for them, because it helps them to regulate, especially when they're overstimulated by their environment. And it's definitely one of the things that I use with my clients to say, okay, you need to go and take some time yourself. What's your favorite kind of music? I also will use music for my clients that have difficulty expressing themselves, like they're not able to put into words what they're feeling, or they don't have the words, emotionally.
I
Because
I remember, not saying that they were diagnosed with anything, but I remember for what you're saying, for me and one of my exes, that was our communication, the music. So
yeah,
they would take songs and send it to me, and I would have to read the lyrics to get where they were coming from because maybe
right,
they couldn't
right.
put the words into. So that's what you're talking about?
I dated someone like that as well. Yeah, and that's kind of where I got the idea from, because
Okay.
some people have a hard time expressing themselves or
Okay.
don't have the words. And so what I find is, to help teach them about certain emotions, and to put into words certain feelings. I'll say, hey, what's your favorite song? Well, why don't you bring it to the session? We'll listen to it, we'll pull up the words, and then we'll dissect the song and put meaning to the words, how they affect that particular person, to
Uh-huh.
help them learn more about what they're feeling and learn about how to express it.
Okay. I like that. I like
Mhm.
that. So there's not been any rules or anything like that. Let's change that. I'm not even going to say that. If you was to be able to give, say, for instance, your patients or your clients music homework. Yeah, I'm going to say music homework.
Mhm.
Music-based homework to support healing or self-awareness. What would it be and what do you hope it helps with their discovery?
Oh, that's a good one.
Hmm.
So there's some music that there's some, actually are some musical pieces that hold frequencies that are good for calming your nervous system.
Oh.
Uh, you know, your polyvagal nerve, there's certain nerve there's our nervous system, and then there's other, like the vagal nerve, the polyvagal nerve. Like there's these different nerves that when they're not regulated, they can absolutely contribute to your emotional meltdowns and things like that. And one piece that stands out for me for sure is Bach. And there's a certain frequency in Bach. I think it's Bach number 9. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's a certain frequency in a certain sequence of Bach that when you listen to it, it actually it it what's the word I'm trying to look for? It will make it makes you feel like a sense of calm. Like you ever listen to a piece of music and all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden your nervous system just feels really calm, you feel really relaxed. So there's different pieces of music that actually contribute to that. So if I were to apply that type of method of working with someone, it would probably be some type of classical or some type of jazz. You know, a lot of instruments hold certain frequencies that will absolutely help with regulating your nervous system.
Wow, you have definitely educated us today, and I love how the music was incorporated with it. So this has been honestly, I think I need to have more sessions like this, more episodes like this, because it gives more information for many listeners who may be struggling with some of these, diagnoses and they're unaware of it.
Absolutely.
So I want to say thank you for that because I worked in a field where I felt like I was always trying to create resources or awareness of these different programs, mental health awareness, autism awareness, so forth and so on. And this right here is good information to
Yeah,
add to
yeah.
my
I
repertoire.
mean, studies have been done on the importance of music in our lives. That's why
Absolutely.
schools tend to have music programs. You know, like growing up, I played the violin. You
Oh,
know,
did
my
you?
daughter played the violin. My daughter played a few instruments, but like these were programs that were implemented into the schools because they learned that music was a way to, help kids to regulate their emotions and give them an opportunity to learn about other musics outside of whatever they would learn at home and in their communities. And also there's frequencies to them.
So, since we discussed all of this, if I was to ask you personally, if you had a soundtrack to your life, what would that song be?
Oh shoot. Jeez. I have a few. I have a few. Uh my favorite is like when I just want to chill out and vibe out and just in a sentimental mood by Duke Ellington and John Coltrane. Like
Yes, grown woman
something
stuff.
about it just makes me
Listen,
feel so like and I'm in a sentimental mood, right?
there you
Um
go.
if I am looking for inspiration and a reminder of who I am and what I have and what I offer and what I bring to this world. And I listen to Mary Mary, Walking.
Okay.
One of them. There's a few of their songs that I like
Yeah,
to listen
Mary, Mary, they're
to.
very inspirational. I love
But then when I'm really in a dark place and I'm really like struggling and I'm sad and I'm angry and I feel like I want to jump off the cliff, it
Uh-oh.
would be Tupac.
Tupac.
It's Tupac. There's a song on the Above the Rim soundtrack called Pain. I
Oh
mean,
my
I
gosh,
learned
you
this
took
song
it
when I was
back.
13 years old, and I know it word for word. And that is the song. And I listen to it on repeat until I kind of calm down and calm down. There's something about the lyrics, the beat, the everything that just it penetrates me. And so I zone out and I'll listen to it, a good 10 times, maybe sometimes more. And it helps me to calm down. So yes, so there's different soundtracks for different personalities.
Well, you know what, Bambi? This has been absolutely an incredible episode, and I truly, truly appreciate it. Appreciate you sharing this information. I think it was very informative. I think the listeners would really appreciate listening to this episode. So thank you again. And how can they reach you if they need to get in touch with you?
Well, right now I'm rebranding. I'm not accepting any clients at this time because I'm actually working on getting my own thing started, and I want to incorporate, more research into the things that I'm doing. But I am on Instagram at Always Evolving, um, and that's pretty much the only like one that I'm really on. But
Okay.
but yeah, I got some stuff coming in the next 6 months, so
Well, we'll definitely be
working
looking for
next
you
year.
because you had a lot of great information to share with us. So, again, thank you so much, and I'll see you
Thank
next
you. It
time.
was great being here. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.